Yeah, because his mom actually worked at Kaiser for 30 years. She got her pension. She left during COVID. She got almost like $2 million.
Oh my.
Yeah.
What is up, guys? Jason here. Welcome back to the channel in our series, Nurses to Riches, The Road to Fire. I remember when Monica started her career and she landed her first job as a home health nurse. She lasted about 3 months in that job before she gave it up after receiving a job offer as a med-surg nurse in one of the highest paying hospitals in New York City. And I've previously been asked several questions about what the opportunities are like for home health nurses in California. So in this video, we're going to be speaking with a home health nurse that works out here in California. Her name is Krizia, and she has a YouTube channel where she documents what it's like to work as a nurse in Southern California. So, as is always the case in this series, we're going to talk to Krizia about her career and her monthly expenses, and we'll break down how much she has left over after all of her expenses are paid. So, Krizia, let us know where you're from and why you decided to become a nurse.
Hey guys, so I'm from Southern California, specifically Orange County, and I became a nurse because I have a family of nurses. I'm Filipino, so my mom's a nurse, my husband, my mother-in-law is a nurse. I have cousins who are nurses, so I just grew up in the medical field, and I just knew that I loved helping people, and you know how my mom is and how she takes care of us. I get that from her, so that's initially why I wanted to become a nurse. But initially too, I went to UC Irvine. I didn't get into the nursing program there, so I thought that I'm never going to get into nursing school, so I still decided to get my bachelor's. So I got my bachelor's in biological sciences, graduated, and was thinking of whether or not I wanted to go through PA or go back to nursing. And then after working about 2 years in the medical field at a call center, I was like, I don't like this job. I want to be out there and do more. So that's when I decided to go into nursing and went to West Coast University and finished in like 2 years. So I graduated January of 2021. So like kind of the end of the pandemic, but like when the vaccine started coming out.
So how was that graduating when the pandemic was going on?
It was
kind
weird.
of the end, just like you said.
It was.
It's still going on.
Yeah, because COVID started right when I was about to start my OB, or I ended my OB clinicals. And so we had to switch over to online. So all of the clinicals we were doing were mostly online, and we were just literally on a website doing physical assessments on like an automated kind of a system and answering questions like, what would you do in the ER? How would you triage? Like all these things. And it was weird because I wasn't getting like clinical experience, but I was also working at that time as a CNA at a hospital. So I was still working on the floor during COVID and helping out the nurses. And then after that, during the end of my last clinical, I was able to go out and actually be in the clinical field. And I feel like I did lose a little bit of experience just because I wasn't able to experience like pediatrics, and which is something that I wanted to do. But in the end, I just wanted to graduate and finish and just start my career basically.
Do you feel like being a CNA helped you when you went through nursing school?
Yeah, it helped me a lot, especially being a CNA, because it helped me when I was on the floor during clinicals. Most of the time as a student nurse, you're acting as a CNA, right? You just help the nurse out with whatever they need. So I already knew that. So it was easy for me to do all the CNA stuff during clinicals. But at the same time, since I already knew the basics, I was starting to think more as a nurse instead of as a CNA during clinicals. So that did help me a lot.
So you said you graduated in 2021. How long did it take you to find your first job?
So it took a while during COVID, to get my ATT. Some people were getting it pretty quickly. Some people were waiting for 6 months. So actually during that time, I was working for Kaiser. There was the Kaiser Student Pandemic Nursing Program that I applied to, where we were getting paid $40 an hour. We were working on the COVID units. I was doing COVID testing. So I was doing that while waiting for my ATT. It took me 3 months to get my ATT. And so March is when I got my NCLEX and I passed. So that's when I got my license. Then 3 months after that, I was waiting because new grad programs here in California aren't it doesn't happen like every single month. It only happens at periods of time, right? So like I had to, like twice, depending on the hospital. And it's at different times and different specialties. And the amount of new grads that they take is different, especially after COVID, because COVID had them push out. They kind of stopped some new grad programs. But it took me 3 months. And so that's when I kind of gave up. It was hard for me to apply to new grad programs. So I started looking at other jobs. So I was on Indeed, and then I found a hospice job there. And that was my first interview, and that was the first job I got.
So you spent, from the moment you graduated to the moment you actually landed your first job, how long did it take?
3 months. March, like about 2 months, two and a
Wow,
half, 2 to 3 months.
that's pretty quick.
Yeah. If I waited for a new grad
Yeah.
program, probably longer, but I didn't want to wait.
Yeah.
That was the thing I was thinking. And I knew that if I got this RN job, new grad programs are based on if you have less than 3 months of RN experience, you could apply. So I said, well, if I take this job now and then if I like it or not, then I'll just go back into looking for a new grad program. But I ended up loving home health, like hospice and home care. So I stayed.
There's this study that is run, I think, every 4 years or so. The last one was in 2018 in the state of California, and they send out a survey to several nurses in California to find out how long it takes them to find a job after graduating. And the average here is about 6 months.
Oh, really? Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
so yeah, it's 6 months or less, but the majority of them is about 6 months. So you actually got a job pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah. So I started pushing out trying to see what's available outside of inpatient. I mean, I could have looked at other new grad positions that weren't new grad jobs that probably would have got it in, but I wanted to go in a new grad program.
So why did you transition from hospice to home health?
So with hospice, I was an admissions nurse. And with hospice, there's not a lot of skills that you learn because, the patients are dying. With hospice, most of it is pain management and, chronic wounds that they'll have. And I wanted to do more like physical skills and more clinical things. And I wasn't a case manager as well. So for an admissions, I would just go in, see the patient, what do they need, then go to the next one. And my goal is to go back to school and become a nurse practitioner. So in order for me to kind of build on those clinical thinking skills and those other skills that I have, I wanted to follow my patients over a longer period of time to see how they were at admission, to see how they improved later on. And my current job didn't have a case manager position. So I found another job in home health, which had a higher pay. And the area that I was serving is throughout all of Southern Orange County, which was what I wanted. I wanted to stay home because my other job I had to drive pretty far, like to LA, which is like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah.
A really long drive.
It is, yeah.
So is your plan still to become a nurse practitioner?
It is after a couple of years. Yeah, I just want to work on paying off my loans and then become a nurse practitioner and still build on like my clinical skills and then see that. But now with home health, I get to do like infusions. I do a lot more wound care. I do more catheter care, post-op patients, post-surgical. So I do a lot more of that stuff now.
Yeah. And getting onto that subject, I did see one of your videos that you sent me, and I noticed that you went to one of your patient homes and you had to start an IV, but you had difficulty getting that IV.
I failed at my blood draw. So I'm going to have to ask one of my LVNs to come and do a blood draw for me because I couldn't get this patient's blood.
So
yes.
You in that situation.
So, well, it wasn't IV, it was a blood draw. So we also do a lot of blood draws in home health. Yeah, IVs, we don't usually start. Mostly the patients come home with a PICC line or midline. Yeah, so we usually do blood draws. So the most you're supposed to try is 2. So I tried twice and I couldn't get it. So the times where I'd fail, I would have to reach out to another, like a LVN, because they're under us. So I'd ask them, hey, can you go out and see this patient? They'll say, yeah, well, I'll go out like same day or the next day, and then they do it. Yes.
And, it's funny because I'm so used to working in the inpatient setting that, if you have a difficult time getting an IV on a patient or drawing blood, you just ask your coworker that's right next to you.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's hard because you go in and then you're scared to fail because now you're like, oh, now the patient has to wait another couple hours or they have to wait the next day. But most of the time the patients are okay with it because then they'd rather get that done than having to go out to the lab. Yeah.
Do you ever get nervous driving to a patient's home?
I don't. Actually, I did yesterday because I called a patient. So with home health, I schedule my own patients at whatever time I have available. So the flexibility is amazing. I start whenever I want, basically. So I usually call them, schedule an appointment. And most of the time they're really nice. Like, oh yeah, thank you. Like, I'll see you. And then yesterday I called a patient who was already like upset. Like, why did it take you so long to see me? I got discharged a week ago. I'm getting worse, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I know how this patient's going to be. So that I was nervous because of that interaction I had. But once you get in the home, they're a completely different person. And I feel like that's different in inpatient because a lot of home home care patients are like my family. I treat them like family. They treat me like family. I've never had the bad experience, like maybe once or twice, but every time I walk in, it's like a whole different environment, and they just like accept you in their home, and they're very thankful, and they show you their gratitude. So it's very fulfilling.
If you ever feel unsafe, are you able to turn down a patient visit?
You can. So that was my first initial question. And when I first got into hospice, I said, is it safe? Because you're walking into people's homes. You don't know what's in the home. You see stuff in the home. Like one of my coworkers walked in and saw a gun,
Wow.
in their house. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you walk into the home, you could see how the home looks like in the area. I would go to LA and different parts of the LA where it's not as safe as you think it is. But if you don't feel safe, yes, you can actually deny to go in. I actually had a patient that lived in a sober living home in hospice, and I'm a female, and everyone that lived there was all male. So I had to keep my guard up, especially dealing with pain medication and all of that stuff. So my first initial encounter there was good. I didn't feel like it was a danger, but I knew that I was in a sober living home. So I had to keep my guard up. Then the next day, my director actually went into the visit because we have to keep the medications locked in a lockbox in a sober living home so it doesn't get stolen. He walked out and he saw like a lot of people outside, and he felt uncomfortable that they know, hey, this guy's on hospice. There's morphine there. There's all these medicines there. So he didn't feel safe for the nurses to come out after I went. So we ended up transferring the patient out to somewhere else where we were safe to go and visit the patient. So if you were to go in and you see like a home and you don't feel comfortable, you see people outside watching you and you don't feel comfortable getting out of your car, you just call and then you talk to your supervisors and they'll let you know, okay, it's not safe for you, just go. Or they'll say, oh, we'll have someone come in with you. So they'll send someone else out to go in with me.
And how many hours a day are you working? I think you said 8 hours a day, 5 days a week?
Yes. Yeah. So I work Monday to Friday from my schedule's 8 a.m. to 4:30. So, and I have a quota to reach or productivity to reach each week, which is 28 patients. 4 of that is admissions. So as long as if I meet that quota, I could see 8 patients a day, be done in 3 days, right? As long as if I meet that quota and then do more overtime later on and then get paid more. But there's 2 different pay styles in home care. I don't know how your wife was getting paid, but there's the get paid per visit, and now they're doing the get paid per hour.
Yes, that's what she was doing, but you get paid per hour.
Yes, I decided to get paid per hour because I calculated it. So I said, if I get paid $56 an hour, how much is that for that week versus how many patients I have to see? So I saw that getting paid per hour, I got paid about more or about the same with seeing 28 patients versus if I was getting paid per visit, I have to see like 40 patients, a lot more patients to get paid the same amount.
So how much were you earning as a hospice nurse versus how much you're earning now?
So as a hospice nurse, I started off at $40 an hour. And then 3 months later, they actually increased my pay by $10 to $50 an hour. Yeah, because I was looking on Indeed and saw that the pay for hospice now was at the 50 mark. So he decided like, oh, let's increase the nurses' pay to 50 to keep the retention of the nurses. So I got paid 50 after 3 months of working with them, which was like basically my goal as a new grad nurse, to be making that like 6-figure mark. And then after that, stayed with them. About 7 months later, I got that 4% increase to $51.50, and then got the new job now in June that I started at $56 an hour.
So, and this new job, how do you like it so far?
I love it. It's just, I love this. I love home health because one, I make my own schedule, very flexible. If there's an emergency and I need to like come home or do something, then I could make that flexibility. I just schedule my patients around that. I love that. I love that I make my own schedule. Like some days I could start later at 9, or some days I could start early at 8 and at like 3 o'clock and then finish charting at home. And that's the other thing I love too, is that I chart at home. So I do as much as I can out in the field, but once I'm in home, like I just chart, which I love, and I don't get bothered or anything. And like I could drink my coffee, or I also love the fact that I'm able to go out and like eat anywhere that I want to for lunch. Yeah.
I remember when Monica was a home health nurse, she only did it for about 3 months or so. But I remember the majority of her work involved her charting.
Yes, charting takes a long time. Like for me, because usually in inpatient, well, you guys do admissions too, but like in SNFs, they have an admissions nurse that's just dedicated to admissions. But for me, I do it all. I do the admissions, I do the discharge. We do restarting the care, like if they go to the hospital, come back. But like Oasis is what you know a lot in home care.
Yes.
And that's like a 15-page charting. A lot of it's clicking, click, click, click. So once
Yeah.
you do a lot of it, you just know, you memorize it.
Mhm.
So a lot of it is that and creating the plan of care. So that does take a long time. And then putting in the medications for each. So if I see 2 in a day, like I have to do 2 of that. But the good thing is if I don't finish it that night, I just do it the next day, when I have time. So
And
that
how much time do they give you to complete the documentation?
you're supposed to complete it within 24 hours. Yeah, so that's the goal, is to complete in 24 hours. But with my current job, they're not like, oh, finish your charting, finish your charting. It's kind of like sometimes even 3 days, sometimes it'll take me if I get so busy with like seeing all the other patients. But I do try to do as much as I can in the field.
And I saw also, we're going to go over this, but I saw on one of your pay stubs that they actually pay you for the mileage that you use.
They do, yes, which is good. It's good and bad, but because the gas is so expensive here, I don't know how much it is up there. It's like almost $6.50 now.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so they pay you per mile that you do. So it pays you from one patient to the next that they calculate, and it's
Yeah.
I think since gas increase went up, it's 63 cents a mile now that we get paid.
See, this is how you would have benefited from having an electric vehicle.
Yes, you do. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. So that would be a lot helpful too.
Yeah.
So
But
because
you
you'll
don't want
still get
to,
paid, you'll still get paid your mileage without you paying for gas, right?
right? That's
Yeah.
true. Exactly. But that's pretty good because Monica, I don't even think she got compensated for the mileage that she used.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she would only get, I think it was $100 per patient. This was in New York City. And
Mm-hmm.
depending on the visit, it could go all the way up to like, I think 110, 120 per patient.
Yeah.
Because like if she was signing up a new patient with the company, then they would
Get
pay.
paid more. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so now you're at this job and you said you're earning what, $55 an hour?
56.
$56 an hour. And do you have any student loans?
I do. That's a
Okay,
bit one
and
of like the biggest. I don't know if you saw that video or like you saw it, but yes, I do have student loans because I got loans for my first bachelor's, which was about like 70. And then when I went back to nursing school, I decided to go to West Coast, which is a very big thing that my whole YouTube is about, because West Coast is a private school. It's very expensive, but it's an accelerated program. They start every 10 weeks. And that's why I decided to go to West Coast, because of how fast it was. And I wanted to finish school as fast as I can to start making money, because if I waited 2 more years, that's 2 years of experience I could have gained, and 2 years that, I could have started making money and saving. So I have about, right now, it's around $150,000.
okay. And do you plan to pay that off quick, or do you want to, stretch it out and maybe take your time in paying it off?
So I'm looking at it because right now student loans I should be paying it because there's no interest, right?
Yeah.
But I have a wedding coming up. So I'm like balancing on paying my loans and then
Yeah.
saving up for the wedding. My goal was to pay it as quick as I can. So right after I finish my have my wedding, then that's when I'm going to start tackling the loans as fast as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And aside from the loan, do you have an auto loan or any other loans that you need to pay off?
No. So I don't have a car. The car's paid off already. And so I'm always like, when in my videos, I say, you know what, you could be paying $1,000 for a Tesla, or you could be paying $1,000 for a loan. So it just depends on like how you view it. Right. So yeah, cars for me is not like something that I want to end up paying just because I don't need it. My car's working fine, so there's no problem with that. But I do have a mortgage, so I split that with my husband. So that's like, I guess, another loan that we have.
What does your husband do for a living?
So he's actually a accountant. He does payroll. So
Is he Filipino?
yes, he's Filipino too. Yeah.
He doesn't sound Filipino.
Uh, yeah, he loves numbers. So no, he can't do nursing. Like he cannot stand like poop or anything. Like he'll.
I don't blame him.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, okay, I want you to break down then your expenses for the month and how much you guys have left over after every month.
Okay, so with my husband, he makes about I think $40 an hour. So his salary, like, because we always like budget everything, so his paychecks always come out to like 20 2,000, 2,200. So we get paid biweekly every 2 weeks. We get paid at the same time every month, which I like. So we know when we're getting paid, how much money we have, how much to put in the savings. So he gets about 2,000, and then I get about 4 with my overtime that I do biweekly. And so every 2 weeks we get about 6,000, and depending on the month, you get that extra third pay. Yeah. So looking at our expenses, we split our mortgage. So we pay our mortgage $1,400 each. So our mortgage is about 28 because we bought our house like during the pandemic, and our interest rate is like 2.7. So we were lucky. Yeah. So our mortgage is like 1,400 and then each. So that's about 2,800. At the end, when I calculate it all, at my side, I pay about 3,000 since I do get paid more. So if you're just looking at my paycheck, 3,000, I get paid like 8,000 a month. I get 5,000 left over. And just for me.
So aside from that, do you have any utility bills you're paying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Utilities, that'll go around, the summer. We use a lot of AC during the heat waves.
Yeah.
So, but it averages around like 150. And then our water is like 60, like gas, like 65. And then we have to pay for trash, which is another like $40. So in total, maybe around 4 to 5.
Okay, so
like with all the and loans too, because my loans are like 630. But just for me with my loans, and I pay for the water bill and for the electric. No car payments. So yeah, about 3,000 just for me, and he pays about maybe 1,800 plus his. So I'd say about
4,800. Oh,
yeah, like 4,800. Mm-hmm.
So you guys have, let's say, about $6,000 left over every month.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Just about. And, again, I have this conversation with everybody I've interviewed so far, because like when people talk about California, they're like, yeah, you guys are making good money, but you're also paying a lot for your cost.
Yeah. I just got a comment on that. Like, oh, you make 56, that's good pay, but where you live, it's a high cost of living. But I'm like, that's if you want to like having a high luxury living, right?
Exactly.
Like it's your decision on what you spend your money on. And if that person was like, oh, that's a low cost of living, but depending on what they spend their money on could be completely different with what you spend your money on, right?
Yeah, exactly. And are you guys renting, or do you have actually you said you have a mortgage and you have
yes
15% interest?
Yeah. So we've been renting out here for a long time. So then our friend's a realtor, so he helped us out and we found a place. It was our first offer and we got it and we're like, okay, let's do it. So we bought our place for $460,000, which is
that is amazing.
It is, yeah. And I live like South Orange County, because the more expensive places are in Orange County is like people think of Newport Beach, like Irvine, Laguna Beach, that's high cost of living over there. But there's areas past that where it's a lot more affordable living. But I mean, we have a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath, and it's like 1,200 square feet. Wow. So we got it for $460, and then a couple months later, the houses like right across us that have the same exact layout are going for $600,000 now. So we've already built up the equity. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, good. Like now we have that equity there. So we're happy that we bought a home and then building equity off of that too.
I think for a lot of people that have been able to afford to buy a house over the last 2 years, 3 years or so, they're doing pretty well right now, because the last year or the last 2 years have been a great market for sellers and also for homeowners. Because, if you held on to your house, then your house has appreciated a tremendous amount.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I remember in New York City, we couldn't even really dream of owning a house or even an apartment or condo in the city.
Yeah.
So we've been renters, almost all our lives up until we moved to California. And since we purchased our house, it's appreciated over $300,000 in value.
Yeah. Wow.
Right? We purchased our house in 2018, man. But I don't know if you know, Monica and I, we had a conversation like a couple of days ago that we plan to move back to New York City.
Oh, really? Uh-huh.
Yeah. We miss New York City. I don't know if you've ever been there before.
No, I haven't.
It's just, we used to live like 2 blocks from Central Park, and that was like our park. We were always there. You don't have to pay to go to Central Park and have a good time, right? Like it's just picnics. You can walk to the park with your family. Like it can take an entire day just to walk around the park. That's how big it is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And our family is over there, so like we miss them. We miss spending time with them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, some of them, they're here right now. They came to visit us. They got here yesterday.
Oh,
So,
that's good.
yeah.
Are you guys gonna do anything?
Yeah, we're going to the Bay Area as soon as I'm done
Oh,
with
okay. Oh, okay.
this.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, it's cool to be around family. I don't know how close
It
you are to your
is.
family, but especially when you have kids, you know?
Yeah. So my family lives like, since they're from the valley, like an hour and a half.
Oh, that's not too far.
Yeah, not too far. So we can go home every weekend if we wanted to, but they come down and visit us. So we're not too far. And we have a lot of our friends in the area too. So that's helpful. But yeah, I can see it's hard to not be away from family because I'm a very family oriented person.
Oh,
I have a lot of, family members that live there. So I love being around them. So anytime I'm with them, I enjoy it.
and do you have any children yet?
Not yet. So that's another thing I have to start saving up for. Maybe 2 years, depending, and then I'm like thinking of going back to nurse practitioner. I'm like going back
Oh,
to school. So we'll see how that goes.
so, we have a 16-year-old daughter, and I don't know if you know that,
Mhm.
but when she was a toddler, we were like, oh my gosh, we don't want to have another kid ever again. This is just too much. Now she's a teenager, and we were like, we definitely don't want to have any more kids.
Oh,
So when we were caught by surprise with our son, we were like, oh my God, we got to do this all over again.
I know.
But thank goodness he's been like a delight. And my mom, she comes and lives with us for like 6 months.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Yeah. That's a big thing too. Cause I talk to people here and they don't have family members and they have to pay like $800 a month just to like help them out with the time for school to go home. They have to stay late. And then there's nannies and there's just so much to pay for. That's another whole thing. But if we do end up having kids, my parents-in-law are going to plan to move in with us and help us out, which will be very helpful, which I'm like, we're pretty lucky for that. So
For sure.
yeah, because his mom actually worked at Kaiser for 30 years. She got her pension. She left during COVID. She got almost like $2 million.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
there you go. You know what? I
yeah,
get this question all the time. People ask me, hey, how's the pension at Kaiser?
it's
There you go. You
amazing.
just proved it right there. It's really
She's
good.
always like, work at Kaiser, work at Kaiser. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I would love to work at Kaiser, but maybe in the future they have a home health there too.
Yeah.
So that could be
You know
something in
what?
the
The home
future.
health nurses get paid the same rate that I get paid.
They do, because I interviewed for a home health position with Kaiser a couple weeks ago, but they do pay you because it's a union. So I'm like, oh, what's the pay? Oh, the rate, your 1 year experience, it was like
Yeah.
51 something here
Yeah.
down in Southern California. And I was like, oh, I'm getting paid 56 right now.
Yeah.
So it's not a good thing for me to move,
That's true.
longer term. Yeah. With this current job I have with the company, I don't see it long term, but later on financially, if I want to stay with long-term work on the pension, then I'm going to consider Kaiser.
See, that's the one thing I forgot because Kaiser has like 2 separate nurses unions. The union down there
It's
definitely
different.
does not. Yeah, they definitely don't get paid that well compared to the ones here.
Yeah, it's about $51 here
Yeah.
as with 1 year experience.
Yeah.
Because I was like watching Oliver's video and I was like, $86? Oh my God.
Exactly. That's what you would be making. Yes.
Yeah, that's a nurse practitioner down here.
Wow.
So yeah, it's so different.
And why do you want to become a nurse practitioner?
Just because I love following my patient's care. If you work in home health and home care, you're already operating at a level of a nurse practitioner, right? Because you walk in, you see what you see, you're going to be like, what do? You can call a doctor's office, but majority of the time I leave a voicemail for the medical assistant and don't get a call back till the end of the day or the next day. But you have to decide what are you going to do at that moment. So it's a higher level of care in home care if you want to. So that's what I like doing. And so that's why I'm interested in doing the nurse practitioner, and plus like to get a higher pay.
Yeah, that's true. And as a nurse practitioner, I mean, you can move to any part of the country and get paid pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of opportunities, like especially with home care that's opening up now, just because there's crazy stuff that I see that people are able to do at home. Right now I have a dialysis patient whose caregiver is the wife, and he has a whole dialysis center at his home. The wife is the one that does the dialysis. She draws blood. She has a centrifuge that she has to do it all. She has a weight. Yeah. They do that at home, and she doesn't even have healthcare experience, and they're doing that at home now. So it's pretty crazy.
So do you guys invest your money at all in like your 401ks, anything like that?
I have been investing some of my 401k, but not maximizing, which is what I feel like I should do. I know I need us to schedule like a consultation with you because
Just put your money in, just contribute. No, you
Yeah,
don't
I
act like
do.
it doesn't even
Yeah.
belong to you anymore.
I know. And then because, okay, the thing is, though, the problem I have is with when I work overtime, right? There's a certain amount that when you start doing overtime, the taxes get taken out. And I notice that a lot. So, like, if I worked X amount of overtime and that's like 5 hours more than what I used to get, I only get paid like $100 or $200 more,
Yeah.
which is not that big.
Yeah.
So, I talk to my patients, I talk to all of them, and I always ask them, like, hey, what do you do? What do you do with your money? And they always talk about investing, stocks, and all of that stuff. So they give me insight, but it's hard to like just actually doing it because you have no idea. And so right now we don't. I mean, I put in a little, I don't even know how much I put. I've been putting some, but I don't even know how much I put for a 401k, but I should maximize it because doesn't the money get taken out before it gets taxed? Is that
So it's tax deferred. Yes, it doesn't even get taxed, right? So let's say, for example, you're making $1,000 per paycheck. You
uh-huh.
put away $100 towards your 401k, then it makes it look to the IRS like you are only getting paid $900 per paycheck.
Which
So
you
they
get
only tax the $900.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I need to do when I like do overtime. Like, just be like, okay, put this much. Okay, yeah,
And
yeah.
you know what? Your husband should be ashamed because he's an accountant.
I know. We're not very like a lot of my friends, like we talk about like being financially literate, but it's just so like don't know where to start, where to go. There's so many different things that you could do. But yeah, they always talk about 401k, Roth, right? I've heard about Roth. I try to watch videos, but it's just so hard for me to like pay attention just because there's so much numbers.
It is. And for someone who's not too savvy when it comes to numbers or even interested in math, like my wife, Monica, she is not interested in any of that. She just knows that I'm putting money away towards and I'm investing it. So I just update her. I'm like, hey, we maxed out our 401k this year. This is where we're at. And then I'll tell her, hey, we're putting extra money towards our mortgage. This is where we're at. And she's like, oh, okay, good. Okay, that's good.
Okay, yeah. And you're like, yeah, okay. And you're just like, oh, it's so much work that you have to take into it. Yeah. So I do have to sit down and like try to look at all the numbers and all of that because getting all the like taxes taken out, it hurts.
And I think it's important not only because less taxes are being taken out of your paycheck, it's the fact that you'll just have more options should you want a career change in the future. Because for us, I remember back in 2016, it's when we really started investing, but then we paused it when we moved here to California. So I think there were like almost 2 years where we didn't invest anything at all. And then finally, when the pandemic hit and we were both working for Kaiser, we were like, okay, we're making so much money right now. We need to just start throwing some of it into our 401k. And this was like 2017, 2018. Now our investments are worth over $200,000.
Wow.
And that's just the investment. And then, again, with the property value increasing, we like our overall net worth is over $600,000.
Yeah.
And I just spoke with this nurse. I don't know if you saw the video yet, but this nurse that for the last 10 years, him and his wife, both Kaiser nurses, were investing in like real estate and working extra hours here and there, not like killing themselves working extra hours, but they managed to get a $3 million portfolio.
Wow.
Because they invested in real estate. They invested in like their 401ks and stocks and their brokerage accounts. And they retired 8 months ago and moved to Florida so they could be closer to family. And then the guy that I did interview, the nurse, his name is Chris. He said, you know what? I didn't know what to do with my time. So I just picked up an extra 24-hour position in ICU in Florida. But he has the option to do that. And they both want to be CRNAs, but now they have options, right? They don't, it's not required that they stick to the same job their entire lives if that's not what they want to do.
Yeah, which is important to like start now when you're young, because that's when you like make as much as you can. Because looking at my parents now, my mom didn't have any of the investment, so I get worried about that. And I feel like a lot in my culture, they don't really do a lot of like Filipinos like not really invest in a lot. That's not something that they do. So growing up, I didn't have any of that, experience with investment and all that. Yeah. So personal finance, it was really hard for my parents. That's, I think, one of the reasons why I ended up in a lot of debt. Well, because of how my parents are. So seeing how they are now in their 60s and still needing to work because, they didn't have the investment, they didn't have a big pension or a big amount in their 401k, it just worries me now for myself. So that's what
break the cycle.
Yes. And start. Yeah. So I have to sit down and look, and then like me and my husband
I forgot to ask you, how old are you?
I'm 28.
Okay, so this is perfect timing. You have so much time ahead of you. If I could have started in my 20s, we would be millionaires,
Already done. Yeah.
multimillionaires by now. And that's
Mhm.
the beauty of it. It compounds quickly over time. Initially, you're gonna be like, oh, this is not going anywhere. But then
Yeah.
after like, let's say 5, 10 years, you're like, oh my God, what this is going so fast. I can't even believe it anymore.
Yeah, because it's just time goes by when you're like getting to your 30s, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell me that twice. Monica's always like, "Oh my God, I'm so old."
Yeah.
I mean, she's gonna be 34 this year, but every year she's like, I don't think I'm ever gonna be able to travel again. I'm getting too old.
I
We need to
know. Yeah.
before I start getting wrinkled."
So I need to look at that. So do you do consultations like for financial advice? Because I see on your website, so you have like a short session and an extended session. So what are those two different
So
options there?
yeah, the consultation that I do is basically I provide career consultation. So
Mm.
like if you have questions regarding where you should go in your nursing career, if you're a new grad or maybe you're going into school now, that's what I do. But also for nurses that are trying to get financial stability and they don't know
Mhm.
where to start, I tell them what I do. I don't tell you what to do because I don't want
Mhm.
give you poor advice. I just tell you what I do and what works for me, and I can guide you through what I do, and maybe you can try to do that too to see if it works for you.
I see. Okay. So I'll look
Yeah,
into that too.
yeah. Hey, let me know. Before we let you go, I want people to know how much you've earned. What's the highest paycheck you've actually gotten?
So, which I do. Yeah, that's one of the videos I have, the most recent video I have. So, the highest paycheck that I've earned was about $7,000 for 2 weeks. But that's about 28 hours of overtime. I worked a weekend. But honestly, with home health, like I don't feel like I'm working because I'm not stuck in a hospital. So, to me, it just feels like going out and doing chores. So, yeah, $7,000 was my highest paycheck. After taxes and everything taken out was $4,500 take home.
So how does that work? How do you clock in and out if you're working from home?
You just put it in a time card.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
there's an app that people use that you just clock in, clock out for lunch. But with my current company, since there's so many changes that have to be made, they just have us put it in.
They ever say anything about you guys working too much overtime?
Overtime, we just got an email about that. So they just say like, let us know if you need to do overtime. They just need to know and approve it beforehand. But like with home care, there's just so much because you think about where do the patients from the hospital go? They go back home. Well, how do we prevent them from going back to the hospital? Oh, home health. So it's like a flow. So it's as much work as it is in the hospital, and the amount of patients is unlimited. It's like I basically have my own business. So like I'm just like an independent contractor, and they're like, hey, here's a new patient. Go ahead and see them, and then I could take on as much as I want to. And then I schedule my own thing, take care of them. Once they're good, discharge them, and then on to the next patient, right?
I love that concept because
Yeah, right?
yeah, it
That's
almost
what I
feels like
feel
you're
like.
your own boss. You're your own
Yeah,
boss.
I am. Yeah. So I mean, I do get calls from the office, but they'll be like,
Yeah.
"Hey, this patient called us. Can you call them back?" And that's basically all the calls I get. Like, I don't have anyone telling me like what to do,
Yes.
like telling me, "Hey, you need to clock in on time" or on any of that. Like, I make my own schedule, which I love. But yeah, it's like running your own business, basically working out in the field on your own. They just hand you all these clients and all these patients and customers, basically, and say, "Take care of them," and then you take care of them, and then you're your own boss, basically,
Yeah.
which I love.
The
Yeah.
level of autonomy that they give you is just amazing.
Yes, it's crazy. So you could be a horrible nurse and work in this field because you
Yeah.
go in and they always tell me like, "Oh my God, you're so amazing. Like, thank you for what you do." Because I really love to take time with my patients. And being in the home is very different than being in the hospital.
Oh yeah.
Because in the hospital, it's a controlled environment, and the
Yes.
home, it's a whole different world. Yeah. You walk in and sometimes they're hoarders. You walk in and they say they take their meds. They don't take their meds, right? So there's a lot of things that go on in the home. So,
Yeah.
and the things that help them out with. But yeah, that's what I love basically being my own boss.
Yeah, it's very cool because I remember when Monica was a home health nurse just for 3 months, and there was one time she needed a Spanish interpreter
Uh
to
huh.
interpret like an application process for her patient, and I went in as the Spanish interpreter.
Oh, really?
And it was so cool. I felt like it was. I feel like there's like almost no stress involved in that
There
line of.
isn't. Yeah, there's some like you'll get family members that are calling and asking questions. And that's the hard part about working in home care is you have to learn how to separate your home because use my personal phone. I use like Google Voice like for
Yes.
numbers that my patients can have. Yeah, but I use my phone. So I have to learn how to separate work, because it's different from the
Yeah.
hospital. You walk in, you say, okay, take over my patient, go home, and then you do your own thing, right? So with me, it's different. So
Do they
that's a balance you have to
do
learn.
they call you at random hours of the day?
No, no, no. Yeah, they
Oh,
don't
okay.
call me after hours. No. What, my patients? No, sometimes they text me. They mostly
Oh,
text me. I tell them text me, and then I'll see it in the morning, like at 6 in the morning, and then I call them later on.
gotcha.
But I always tell them if it's an emergency, just call our. We have an after hours line, or if it's very an emergency, go to the
Yeah,
hospital. Yeah.
cool.
So I've never had anyone calling me late at 9 in the evening asking me for help. Yeah,
Yeah,
I just refer them out like, oh, give a call to this number. You just
yeah.
have to learn how to just direct them to somewhere else.
Cool. So if I have any viewers on my channel that want to become home health nurses or they're interested in working as a home health nurse in your area or in California, how can they reach you? Like what's your YouTube handle or what YouTube channel?
So my YouTube channel is Krizia Ann. So it's Krizia space ANN. So you can comment on my videos. I comment pretty quickly, or you could also DM me on Instagram, which I get a lot of messages from. And my Instagram is Krizia Ann __. So you can personally DM me, ask me any questions that you have. And a lot of people have been asking me, but I only share, the company I work with if you're in my area.
All right, guys, that's it for this video. If you like this video, then make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to be a guest in one of our future videos, then make sure you click on the link in the description below. And if you want to see our previous Road to Fire videos, then make sure you click on this playlist here.